I found a new need as I was building out the business and delivering a service. And that was a need for people to have a person or people in their business or in their life who could take them to the next level. And I'd been working with virtual assistants. They assisted me. They were task masters. Like, I assign something, they do it. It's like a machine, right? And so it's like, here you go, plug the thing in, and out comes an outcome. Well, I started realizing that wasn't a good solution for everybody. I had people call me and they're wanting to use my services, and I would sit there and go, I could pitch them, but it doesn't feel right. And I'm a guy who is led by always, it's so cliche, but if I can't send somebody away with something of value at the end of a call, I feel like I've failed.
Bootstrapped Unicorns, it's Josh Pies. I am the chief attention getter over here, and I'm grateful that you're back for another episode. So if you were on the last episode and you watched it, you know we had the former CEO of Blockbuster, yes, the place where you have to please be kind and rewind. And oddly, he talked about 7-Eleven in his time as the 7-Eleven CEO, like 100% more than the other one. And he promised to come back, and I'm sure he will. It was a great time. Well, I got another treat for you. Today, my good friend, and boy, did we become fast friends. I've known him for less than 6 months, and I feel like I've known him for 25 years. It's my friend, Scott Rammage. Scott owns HireVP, and we hire his people. Half of our team is actually placed through his company, and he's actually going to explain some of that. By the end of the show, you're going to learn how staffing through VAs, is probably the term you know, can work for you. So entrepreneurs, get ready for that lesson, because that lesson is an actionable, tactical thing that you can actually do to up-level your business. But also, Scott's got a background in business that I can't wait to dig into, because he has really changed a business model, kind of like in live real time. And that change is fascinating to me. So without further ado, one of the coolest guys in Texas, Scott Rammage. How the heck are you, brother?
Hey, how are you? Chief attention getter. I love that, man. Thanks for having me on. Yeah. I wrote that down. I'm like, I'm going to take note of that. It's pretty cool. I'm doing so well.
I didn't want to be the boss.
Okay. I love it. Yeah. It's so interesting. I was at a business meeting today. I engage in several where, I have really cool other business owners kind of feeding into me and vice versa. And they called me out for, like, I said, the ship rises and falls with me. And they're like, well, maybe you're not in the right place yet in your business. And I'm like, oh, and anyway, I could go on and on about business, but it's like trying to figure out what your role is in a business as you grow is a very interesting journey. And that's where I'm at now. But I love all phases of business. So I'm so happy to be here to be able to talk about any phase of my journey, which is quite long.
Well, and you and I are in the same place too, because as the business grows, and we are growing way faster than I had really even anticipated, the growing pains are present. And I was telling my wife last night, I said, I think I'm one of the problems in our business, because I have to learn to change some of my own habits. For instance, I've got a whole bunch of people who are emailing and texting me directly out of years of habit, right? Because I was the guy who'd be like, oh yeah, we'll get that on the calendar. Well, I've got an assistant who gets that on the calendar now. And, oh yeah, we'll get that change order edited. Well, I don't walk into an edit suite anymore. I've got an awesome team that does that. And that should not be communicated through me playing the telephone game.
Right.
And here I am calling the guys going, oh yeah, he wants a change. No. There's a system that we're putting in place, a standard operating procedure. Scott, you have drilled this into my head, SOPs. We're getting there.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's such a journey. And it's so interesting. The other day I was sitting there and I'm like, oh, I got this new sales team coming in. I'm going to type up this FAQ list. Just from my head, I know all of the main questions that clients are going to have or prospects are going to have. I want to address them. I want to give this tool to my sales team. I'm sitting there typing. I'm like, this sucks. I hate doing this. And I'm like, ding, 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 Scott, you're the who, not how guy. And here you are doing the thing. Yep. And so even the guy who lives and dies on the who, not how, like literally every step of the way, there's a new position, hire, move forward. And I still find myself stuck in my own way. So I stepped back. I'm like, okay, this sucks. I don't want to be doing this right now, but it really needs to get done. And then the little ding, ding, ding sign went off. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to turn on Loom. I'm going to say the word question. I'm going to answer in my own terminology, and I'll go through it. 8 minutes of recording, send it to my team. I'm like, make an FAQ out of this for the sales team. And next day comes back, I make a little tweak. I don't make the tweak. I tell them how to make the tweak. Big key there. Mm-hmm. And now I've got a finished product, 8 minutes, which probably would have taken me 2 hours to type up. So even as somebody who is really good at leveraging people and understanding there's systems and operations and procedures that I need to dial in, and I'm always dialing those in, I still struggle with that reminder that it's not all landing on me. There's other ways to do things. So
I met a dog trainer at an event the other day, and the guy walks in a 3-piece suit with his, gray hair pulled back into a cool ponytail. And I think he's going to try to sell me like a Maserati or something. And he introduces himself as a celebrity dog trainer. And I said, so you train celebrity dogs? And he goes, well, every dog is a celebrity to me, but it's usually the famous person who has the wild dog. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. I said, so how do you train a dog? And he goes, you train the human. And I feel like I need a dog trainer sometimes to retrain me as I'm getting trained to do the new trick or whatever. But I'm not necessarily the dog. I am the human. But there's this just interesting, I'm always learning. I'm always retraining myself to get better for the next level. And I just noticed recently I'm not there yet. I still need some training. And there's a guy with 4 college degrees, and popular belief, I think, says, well, you've got your degrees, you are fully trained. That's bull.
It's bull. It's total bull. I went through this recently. I thought I had read the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Patrick Hardy. And so I love the Dan Sullivan books. Let's see, the Gap in the Gain, absolutely earth-shattering for having a different view on things and focusing on the right things and focusing forward and using what's happened behind you as a gauge of where you've been instead of looking where you're going. Really cool. Anyway, I butchered that. Then, so I decided, well, I'm going to read Who Not How again. So pick it up. Reading through this. I didn't want to read it because I am the Who Not How guy. I'm like, you need the who's. Like, stop trying to figure out things that aren't in your working genius and hire for them. And it doesn't have to be expensive. You know how I see things, and this is what I did. And I used to be the get everything done guy. I was consulting for a company when I found the world of virtual assistants, consulting for the company. And I was so busy. I hired a VA, offloaded something, hired another VA, 3 VAs in. What I did, Josh, is crazy. All I did was took on more work. I just kept filling my own space. I was hiring VAs and filling my own space. I'm consulting for this company at a flat rate, monthly rate. And when I left, I gave them a stack of SOPs. They hired 5 people. That was on me for hiring the who's, but then continuing to be the who for everything else. And this is what business owners do so often is they bring someone on and then they start doing something else, and they always jam their day full of things. And so I pick up this book, The Who Not How, and I start reading. I'm like, I haven't read this. This is fascinating. I thought I knew everything. And I had to read through that, and it took me next level, and it's really challenged me. And so, no, we never stop learning. And as soon as we think we're done learning is when we are going to hit the walls and not grow. Yeah. And it was such a phenomenal new perspective, different perspective. And it lifted the lid for me as a business owner who, when I record everything I do, I then have an SOP made from it, and then I delegate. And so it's just this process, boom, 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 boom. But I keep putting myself in a new position. So I've been doing sales for my company. Holy cow. I'm like on the phone 20, 30 hours a week doing sales. I'm stopping. I can't grow my company if I'm always doing sales. I'm growing it, but I'm not growing it. And
you're not scaling it, you're growing it.
Right. And it's just like, we just never stop. We never stop. And I think that's such an important thing. To circle back to your dog thing, we paid good money to have our dog trained when he was a puppy, and recently I'm like, man, he's doing some stupid behaviors. And my wife goes, we need to get him back for a refresh. And I said, you know what that means, hon? She's like, what do you mean? What? And I said, it means we need to be trained again because we're the ones screwing up. And it's exactly true. It's just a never ending learning thing. So I love that analogy.
I'm glad. Yeah, it was illuminating to run into this guy and feel a little called out by his presence. Called out by the dog catcher, the dog trainer. But hey, so one of the things I've failed to do is, I did a little tee up, and we know the name of your former business and current business because I name dropped him on the intro. But we're talking all this stuff that, honestly, Scott, I'm learning from you every time I talk to you because you're so clear on how to build standard operating procedures and delegate well. It's really positively affecting my business. But let's let the audience know really quickly the elevator pitch of the business you have and the problem you solve, so that maybe let's spend some time helping entrepreneurs understand how to leverage that. Yeah. And then, and I realize it's out of order of the table of contents that I proposed, but then we'll get into your the way the business started and some of the changes you had. So what is your business and what problem do you solve?
So the name of the business is HireVP, which VP stands for virtual professional. And so the problem I solve is staffing, really. I mean, if you really peel it back, I'm a staffing company, but all of you may or may not have heard of virtual assistants. And I started in this world of virtual assistants to help myself. And what happened is a whole business was grown out of it. That's what you're alluding to. And I found a new need as I was building out the business and delivering a service. And that was a need for people to have a person or people in their business or in their life who could take them to the next level. And I'd been working with virtual assistants. They assisted me. They were task masters. Like, I assign something, they do it. It's like a machine, right? And so it's like, here you go, plug the thing in, and out comes an outcome. Well, I started realizing that wasn't a good solution for everybody. I had people call me and they're wanting to use my services, and I would sit there and go, I could pitch them, but it doesn't feel right. And I'm a guy who is led by always, it's so cliche, but if I can't send somebody away with something of value at the end of a call, I feel like I've failed. And a lot of times people just not ready for my service. But in this situation, I'm like, this gal who's on with me, she's not a good fit for my company, but I have a solution. I know exactly what it is. It's putting someone specifically in her life who can, she can delegate, but also who can learn the things they need to learn and operate at a higher level. And so we started this placement service. Like, we will find a really good virtual assistant for you. And it elevated and elevated and elevated. And we started placing, very high level individuals. And so we started placing, executive assistants, individuals with an operational mindset, individuals with a high integrator score who could come in and actually run alongside like I had infused into my life. And so we are literally a high level virtual staffing agency. So from anything from a virtual assistant, like an admin or an executive assistant, all the way up to, 3D drafters and graphic artists. We're placing very high level people in positions. They just happen to be remote and they happen to be a great price. What happened is I kept elevating the level of person that we were recruiting. We have an incredible recruiting service system that weeds out the riffraff. And I kept thinking, well, I think we've reached the top. and then I had a friend who posted a job for engineer. I'm like, interesting. I reached out to him. He's like, dude, no. I know what you do is amazing. I'm just not interested. This has got to be someone in the US. So I'm like, hey, look, free of charge, I'm just going to recruit engineers and send them to you. And sent them to him. And I can't say in good conscience what his response was on the first one I sent him, because we send our people a package of options. Yep. And he's like, it basically blew his mind. And so we get him the whole package, he hires, and within a week, he's like, hey, look, I was wrong. This person is making my local staff incredibly nervous. He's doing 3x the work they are, and I'm saving about $100,000 a year. And he goes, the work ethic is different. the responsiveness is different. And now, we have multiple engineers. So we keep elevating what we can recruit. And so at that point, I'm like, hey, like we were still running under our old business name. And I started to do this. I started like, these are professionals. So we went with the term virtual professional. And here's the beautiful thing about it, just so you all guys all know, 3 VA agencies since then have switched. All of their marketing is now virtual professionals. We've changed.
So you're starting the national trend.
We are. We're working on trademarking the statement right now. We're like in a rush. I'm like, go. Because I was like, this is different. This is not a virtual assistant. So we're kind of a virtual assistant can fog a mirror. And that sounds horrible, but a lot of people are like, oh, I had a horrible experience. They disappeared. I know all the reasons and intricacies and cultural things that go on in here. And I'm like, no, you're right. That's a virtual assistant. We're talking about a virtual professional. So we provide high level staffing solutions to our clients. Long answer, but
no, that's a great long answer though. And how many people in your organization, and how many of them are local, and how many of them are virtual professionals for yourself?
Oh, in my own business? Okay, so we'll talk about Media Machine. Media Machine has 13 full-time virtual staff. It is 99% run by a Philippines team, has been for 3 years. All I do is I take the leads, do the sales calls, and close it and move on. And I'm offloading that. Because I built out systems, I used SOPs. We have onboarding's all systemized. It's boom, boom, boom. Videos and checklists and assigning people, the new clients, certain steps so they can be all ready to go. And then HireVP, we're running about 9 thick right now, and all but my sales guys are in the Philippines, including my operations manager. Who can run the business, literally.
Oh, and I've met her. She's outstanding. Yeah. Totally makes sense. So that, just there to look at a business and say, I can have 13 virtual professionals running this business. I can have 9 running this business. We don't walk across a hallway and run into each other, but we've got systems and processes in place to make sure that this is going. It's kind of a dream come true. For an entrepreneur to not have to have brick and mortar. There's just so many overhead layers that come with local employees.
Yeah.
It's just a fascinating business model, but it's a business model it seems reasonably portable. It's porting over to my business. I've got 2 wonderful virtual professionals. They feel completely integrated into my team. They're on all the calls, they're on all the WhatsApp chats. We see their activity in Asana where we're logging our data. And so it's just like a normal day with them every day. Mm-hmm. So I start forgetting. We had an issue where time zones and locations were very unclear because they're in the Philippines, never having traveled to the US. And so there was this moment where it's like, oh, that's right. I do have to at least be mindful that they've never driven this route. And so when setting an appointment, it's a 2-hour drive, not a 10-minute drive. And so those little things remind me that they're not local. But other than that, it's like they're down the hall.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It's really weird. And one of the things that I really value is locational freedom. So now any business owner can have locational freedom if he or she has the right mindset, even if they're running a construction company, even if they're running a boots on the ground operation. Anybody can have locational freedom, but I have ultimate locational freedom outside of my son and his school, and that's the biggest issue right now. But I can work from anywhere. My team works from anywhere. It's such a surreal situation, but I have ran teams. I've been a vice president of a sales organization. I've been a vice president of a customer service organization. I've done consulting. I've owned my own businesses, brick and mortar. And I have never felt this close with my staff ever as I do right now. The communication, everything relies on really good communication. And so you pop on a Zoom, you pop on a WhatsApp call, you pop out messages. It's constantly, everything is communicated very clear, and it's quite magical. So when we get a new client, we go search specifically for that role. And we did this for this client, and we sent him this was just last week. We sent him the presentation of the 3 candidates that we were bringing to the table to him. And he sent me a voice message back, which again, I'm not going to say the terminology he used. He did say, I usually don't cuss, but holy F. This has completely changed the paradigm of what my business will look like looking forward. And not only that, I showed all my in-house staff, and they all had said the same thing. They said, we're not hiring anybody local anymore. If we have our boots on the ground team, but this is such higher level than we're used to working with, that this is the future of our business. And that's a regular thing. So, people start with 1 hire, and then they make 2, and then they make 3. We have a gentleman who started with 1 admin person for his business, which actually happens to be dog training. So he's a franchisee, but he has 9 of them. And there's hundreds of these franchises in the United States. He's just the biggest one. And so he hired an admin. He had great SOPs. Admin started from us, started performing on those SOPs, answering phone calls, booking appointments, doing follow-ups, collecting money. Then he brought in 2, and then he brought in 3, and then he brought in 4. I'm like, what the heck, dude? Like, you were doing fine with 1. He's like, yeah, I started selling that admin service to all the other franchisors in the United States. So I actually have an agency built by your agency who's serving other businesses. And then the next thing I know, he's like, I need a marketing, I need a marketing person. I need to go high level person. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I have a marketing company, and your team is the entire fulfillment of that company now. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So we just keep making hires, and now we have other people doing the same thing. So it's just insanely cool to watch entrepreneurs see that virtual opportunity. It is not, it's not a barrier, unless it's a barrier for them in their own head, and they get over it really quick. And it's, maybe 30% of the costs are saving 70%, depending on the role. Some people save even more. Some people save less.
So this is a great and interesting point here. So there is a massive cost savings depending on where you're hiring somebody, country to country. And we've seen this in the United States, manufacturing offshored for years and still does. And we have this kind of ebb and flow. Like, is it cheaper to bring manufacturing onshore because of logistics? Or is it cheaper to, leverage, getting closer to the raw material and also less expensive labor? And, there's always, and I've had this conversation internally in my company, as well as with some fellow business professionals who, they go, oh, I don't want to hire overseas. That's slave labor.
Yes.
And of course, I know you know me, slave labor is a terrible idea. It is unethical and just gross. And there are giant businesses out there that do crap like that, and it is crap. However, I know from our conversations, it is quite far from that. So it'd be really cool for you to talk about for a few minutes the level of care that is financially attached to a business owner's obligation to the virtual professional they're bringing on staff. What's that look like? And can they feed themselves? Can they feed their families?
So this came over time as I kind of engaged in this world. I had a lot to learn. We pay really well. And so I did some research when I first started. And at that point, the average hourly rate for someone living in the Philippines, working for a Philippines company, was $1.36 an hour.
US.
And it's like, wow, I'm like paying a lot more than that. And so I started to, engage more and more and more. And what we're paying now, bringing someone in, is the difference between everybody in the family working and one person in the family working. And when I say everybody in the family, I'm talking about multi-generational. A lot of them share homes with their parents and then
we're seeing
their siblings. And so, like Chloe, my director of operations, will go to the bank. She's told me this story many times. Every time she goes to the bank, the bankers go, I want a job. They see her money coming in and they're like, I want a job. And I get stories over and over and over again of the life-changing, even at the entry levels that we're putting in, some of them, one of my gals bought her first refrigerator. She says, this is the first refrigerator in our family. We actually can eat have food in the house and make fresh food instead of just doing all the boxed stuff. So it's bringing health. My other manager for Media Machine is buying a house at 24 years old, which is unheard of. And like I get messages day in and day out. We have a Slack channel. We're very culturally driven. We have a company culture that is incredibly, like, I am so proud because we talk about having a win-win-win scenario. And so I preach this to our virtual staff, all the people that we have in all the businesses, is if you can perform with excellence and help your client win in their life, if you put forth the excellence and the attention and the skill to help them win, you will win because they'll never want to get rid of you. And fear of work is huge with Filipinos. People hire them. They say, oh, I'm going to hire you forever. They get their project done. They let them go. So it's like this constant cycle of trying to find work.
That's
and we bring that.
To live.
Yeah, we bring that and we're like, hey, no, we got you. We got you. If you're amazing and our client leaves, hey, we'll place you in another place. Like there's so much comfort. And so the stories coming through are insane. Like this is the first vacation I've ever been able to take. I've never gotten a bonus before. We pay bonuses. We pay health insurance. I've never had health insurance before. And so we're actually providing, I try to equate the dollar to dollar. It's really difficult, but I have almost all of them are college grads. And
really, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and then I have licensed physical therapists on staff. I have licensed RNs on staff. They're making so much more money working for our clients and us than they would any other way. It would be, let's say in the US, it would be equivalent maybe to 10K a month, maybe 12K a month. Like we're paying really well. And these are people, the dollar valuation is just really great over there. So we're not paying them low. I've seen the prices they pay for things there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could live like a king for the rest of my life. Right. So it's just different. And it's a third world country, but they're elevating. And the thing here is that you are impacting an entire family. And it's so cool to watch. So that was a really long answer. The impact has been so like I have tears almost every week as a guy. That I'm proud to be a guy. I'm proud to feel like I'm tough and fit. But dang, it's hard to get these stories that come across my board of like, thank you so much. I get the thank you so much, Mr. Scott, and then all the other people involved for being so amazing. And so I have to talk with passion about it because I am passionate about it, but because so many people have a really bad perception of what we're actually doing.
Well, and that's right. I mean, the bad perception, thankfully I didn't have that coming in because I had been exposed enough to this, but I've had enough people kind of rib me for being like a bad human for hiring outside of the US. Mm-hmm. And the ribbing is always like, oh, I don't really mean it, but yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I remember when we initially talked and we were bringing on our team, I asked this question about living wages and exceeding living wages and making sure that what we're doing is clearly ethical. And I remember you thanking me for asking the question, and we went through everything you just described. But I still have gotten a couple of people who have, yet again, ribbed me about it. And then I take time. I'm like, okay, let me educate you right now. And it's just an important distinction to make that also we're hiring in the US too. There's certain things.
Absolutely.
We've got to have physical people here. We've got to have certain things done here. And I'm not interested in building a business that thinks about the US economy. I'm not playing and I'm a patriotic guy. I'm not playing the patriotism angle at the expense of the quality of my business. I'm going to hire good people, treat them well, and grow a great business, pay my taxes, do my thing, and it will have a broader result depending on who's on the team. But it's not my job to play president. It's my job to play business owner. Mm-hmm. And as long as I'm ethical about it, I'm good.
Our market as business owners will tell us what it's demanding. And as business owners, we need results. We need loyalty. We need great work ethic. We want to see results. We want to see somebody who's bought in. And unfortunately, not getting political, but just factual, we've generated a couple dozen years of individuals in general who don't know how to work. In fact, the statistics right now are saying that they love the government jobs because it's kind of like set it and forget it. And that's the desire right now. The desire, most millennials at this point, there's just a study that came out, it's like 80% of millennials reject elevation in the business because they don't want to work harder, they're comfortable. And so now we're looking at this generation that we could hire and bring in. So let's say it's $2,000 a month for the VP that we're going to provide for somebody. For that same thing, even if you found an inexperienced 20-something-year-old and paid him $4,000 a month, you're going to get a completely different loyalty and a completely different mindset. This is not a like, you owe me because I'm working for you. This is I owe you because I'm working for you.
Yeah.
And that's the differentiation. And so as a business owner, you need to provide a stellar service.
That's right.
And it needs to be efficient and it needs to make sense. And hey, newsflash to anybody who's not a business owner, we got to make money or it's not a business. It's a, I don't know what it is, but
it's a ill-advised activity.
Yeah. Complete waste of time.
Yeah.
And this equation works so incredibly well. And the loyalty is so strong because of the opportunity. It would be like me saying to, a 40-year-old, hey, I'm going to pay you $300,000 a year this year to be my executive assistant. Do you think that person's going to bend over backwards and do a phenomenal job? Yeah. But unfortunately, in a lot of the cases, if I brought in someone in their 20s, they're going to do the same job at that they would somewhere else, just because of kind of the generation that we ourselves did. It's our fault. Like
we created them.
Yeah. And so this isn't a blanket statement. I'm just looking at those 80% stats and what I've experienced. And so,
well, and we're seeing it a lot. I mean, I told a story actually on one of our episodes about just trying to go to a Burger King and get a burger. And they were only serving one type of burger and fries because the manager and one other person showed up that day. Mm-hmm. So we went to the next Burger King 3 miles down the road, ran into the same exact thing. And then, so, we're in an entertainment district in the center of Orlando. There's a lot of fast food. So gosh darn it, I wanted my Whopper and I wanted it with bacon and they weren't willing to do it. So I go right around the corner to the last one, and 3 of them in a row were failing because of employment issues. It's an entry-level position and the entry-level people are not showing up or not even taking the jobs in the first place. And then I got my wife commenting just this morning that she's in a mom's group. And one of the moms is in freak out mode because her 19-year-old daughter just quit because the boss is kind of mean. Wow. And what is the perception of mean? And what's that mean? I don't know. Maybe if he's really mean, you change jobs. But instead of holding that job and then going and finding another job, she's on the couch. Yeah. And so welcome to being a modern 19-year-old. You get a little bit uncomfortable and you bail.
Yeah. It's a sad, sad thing. And it's an incredible thing to have your staff bending over backwards. We even hired an entry-level position with a high-level person yesterday. So I was talking to the business owner. I'm like, hey, this is really admin stuff. But here's the thing. Do you want your processes to remain the same or do you want them to get better? He's like, well, obviously I want them to get better. I'm like, how's it been working with the entry-level people you've been putting in there? He's like, they follow the process. They don't ask anything. They get it wrong half the time. There's no hope. I said, let's get you a really high end, like executive assistant that comes in and actually performs on it, but then comes to you and says, hey, I've been doing some research on how we're doing this. If we switched programs, we'd save $200 a year and a couple hundred hours. Are you cool with that? Because that's what's happened to me, you guys. When I first started, VAs, they would come back to me like, hey, I made this SOP, but here's a different SOP I want you to take a look at. I work, what? Okay. that's much better than I would ever came up with. Run with that
Yeah,
one. And so it's a hard argument to fight. But
it
there's
really is.
always going to be a perception, sweatshop perception, sending money overseas perception. We're
Yeah.
changing lives. Look, a human is a human. I love the human race. I want humans to win, and I am making an impact in this world through what I'm able to provide. And I'm making an impact in businesses through what we're able to provide. We're helping them thrive, which when they thrive, that money stays in the economy. It really does. And it's,
Yeah.
and the service gets better. So I sleep really well at night.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm sleeping much better too. It's funny, Scott. So I've got my team blowing me up right now. They know we're talking. And one of them saying hi to you.
Awesome.
Two of them have all of these things that need to be happening, and a lot of it's going on without me having to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to try to suck me into one of these things in a few minutes, but I'm just kind of watching out of the corner of my eye. It's like, we're having a great conversation here, and the world's spinning.
Yeah.
It feels really good.
It does. I'm with you.
So one of the things I wanted to cover, and I feel like our audience, if they don't get a virtual professional as an opportunity for them by now in this conversation, then it's not an opportunity for them.
You don't need to beat that horse anymore.
Right, absolutely. And one thing I should say is, I'm grateful that you are in a sales mode, and so we've gotten a affiliate relationship with HireVP now, and you are a sponsor of our show. So we at Bootstrapped Unicorns are proud to be a part of the HireVP world. Not only are we customers and actively growing, and actually Scott will probably be pulling a couple more VPs in soon. I'll talk to you about that off camera. But we want you to consider growing your business in this way. So if you contact HireVP, I mean, we don't have an affiliate link yet. We'll get that all figured out in the next couple weeks and months. But if you contact HireVP and say, I heard you on Bootstrapped Unicorns, you're going to get what is the discount that you're offering right now?
I think it's 10% off the first 3 months, 10% off of your payment.
So that's huge. That's great. That's a couple $100 extra in your business's pocket, as you're also getting a comparative labor discount from US to a foreign area.
Right.
So now you're saving even more money, and you're putting yourself in a position of growth. So you've got to talk to Scott and his team. You probably won't even be talking to Scott. He's got his team. But maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you will have a great experience. And so Just say, hey, I heard you on Bootstrapped Unicorns. How do we do this? And they'll guide you through everything. And truth be told, I've had VAs before, but it's been more direct relationship with those VAs, lots of extra management, lots of things I didn't want to have to do. HireVP takes a lot of that management and a lot of the accounting and bookkeeping and legal and regulatory all off your plate. You don't have to worry about it. And that's a magical thing. So don't worry about that hiring process and a lot of the logistics of it. Worry about getting the new relationship you're about to build right, and they'll guide you through everything.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And we're excited to work with you. I mean, if you even say Josh, we'll know what you're talking about.
Perfect.
We're very, very cognizant of that. It's incredibly important that we represent everybody really well. And it's just an absolute honor to be talking to you about that, because I feel so good about it, because I know I get the stories over and over and over again. This is really doing good for me. And I've always had that. I think we all, in some way, I hope, have that ethical selling proposition. Like, if it doesn't add value, like, I shouldn't be here.
Right. 100%. Yep. You shouldn't sell something that doesn't do what you say it's going to do.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. We're all on the same page. Entrepreneurs, if you're watching this, I think you're also probably spiritually on the same page somewhere in your heart. So now you got to take the next step and grow your business with HireVP. Now, I know you started as Media Machine. I've always found that name completely weird for the virtual professional world. And I know you've fixed that marketing as you had your metamorphosis. But, we talked for a while about your origins in the industry, and you've teased it a little bit. But go ahead, that transition, that awareness that you had, that we've already talked a little bit about it. But living the transition as an entrepreneur, when you were one thing, and then you're becoming this next thing, it's awkward.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty open about, my business has transitioned and there's been awkward. And I'm curious about your awkward and how you dealt with, what you guys were, what you were seeing and what you knew you would become. And how do you manage that transition as an entrepreneur from one product and service offering to something that seems wholly different?
Yeah, I've done it 3 times with this company.
No, 3?
Yeah. So when I started, it was basically I was running masterminds for gym owners, and they were asking me for help with my virtual professionals. And that's how the whole thing started. So the business actually started with the dumbest name on earth, but it was definitely, clear over clever. VAs for gyms. And, we were
that is on the nose.
Yeah, we were targeting gym owners, and we grew greatly and fast with gym owners. Totally different service offering. It was more of a plug and play, like just come in, tell us what to do, we do it. You're not having a personal relationship with anybody. And so that business is still going. And a year in, we realized, man, Scott's talked half our people into doing podcasts. And so now, like, we're doing all this podcasting. And then we started having businesses come in and like, well, do you work with non-gyms? I'm like, same thing. It's same theory. I'm like, yes. And we changed it to media machine because a lot of people were doing social media management, reels and stuff. And it was completely different from your offering. But so we're like, we're going to change it to media machine. Very awkward, very weird. What we realized is that people did not let go of VAs for gyms ever. So when I started doing hiring, this new service, I tried to build it under the media machine branding, and it was very confusing to people. And and so like, look, I'm like, well, I've done this once. You send out an email, you do the thing, and I don't want to do podcast stuff anymore. I don't want to do. I like, that's not my focus. Yeah. And that brand is actually moving back to the VAs for gym offering. We're really focusing, and I brought someone in to actually run and take over that, to build it back out.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. Now Media Machine's just the parent brand is what I call it. Because what happened is anytime we push something into our system, it's like a machine. A machine is something you give input to, it pumps something out, right? It's systems and processes and things that fit together that create something. And so that's where that name comes from. But HireVP, what happened is people weren't using the name Media Machine. They're just like, you got to talk to the VA guy, Scott. I did
the same thing.
Yes, I got to introduce you to Scott. He's the VA guy. I got to get you talking with Scott. And I'm like, this sucks because I can't build a brand but my name is not synonymous. If it's synonymous with everything, then I can't grow. And so I'm sitting here going, crap. And someone says, like, I'm talking to my little entrepreneur group I run, and they're like, we got to get it from Scott, the VA guy, to whatever it's going to be, because Media Machine is not working. And so just went down the rabbit hole. I tried AI. That was a nightmare. I got thousands of outputs. And I finally got on a phone call with Buddy. He's like, because everybody says get a VA with Scott or talk to Scott, the VA guy, your name's got to be short and it's got to make sense. It's like, what really works? And we ended up with HireVP, virtual professional. And it was like, boom. Hey, you need to talk with Scott over at HireVP, which very easily can transition to, hey, you need to talk with X sales guy at HireVP.
That's right.
So I was able to take me out of the equation. And the thing is VP has a story.
That's what I was just going to point out to you, that you landed a story. You're pivoting an entire industry with one letter, P, professional. That is literally a massive paradigm shift, and you own it. And so that story sells it.
It's been really exciting. And then the next step was, I've always really struggled, and this is why my website, I'm just going to say it sucks. I've always really struggled with branding. I can't get the ideas in here. the ethereal marketing feel. How do I portray emotion from here? I can get it through my mouth, but I can't get it to a web builder, and I can't get it to a logo guy. So I tried I tried to have all these logos, and I finally found a guy, and he's like, "Hey, let's just talk." What a novel concept. He keeps asking me questions on questions. He's like, "Why hire VP?" And I told him the story, and I'm like, "Why? What do you want the feel to be like?" I'm like, "Simple. I want it to be a really cool logo that you can wear without the name on it, and it looks like a brand. It looks like a cool." And he's like, "Okay." And he asked me these questions, and comes back. He's like, "Here's what you got." And there's several iterations. The HireVP name just works so well. And he came up with this sort of a VP, and you look at it, and you can't see my hat because it's black on black. But when you look at
I can see it. I got you.
It looks like it's a bird. And so it's also, you can also find a V and a P in it, but it's a bird. And the story is you could argue that the very first virtual professional was a carrier pigeon who took something out of where you were at now and performed a duty at a distance. And then we're talking about, and then our tagline is higher above the rest. Well, birds elevate. My mind blew.
So nicely.
Yeah. So the name was easy. It made sense. Now I got people, like I think I said this earlier, it was either to you or another group. I've got 3 virtual assistant companies who've now pivoted to virtual professional. They are audibly and visually putting it out. We don't just hire VAs, we hire virtual professionals. Here's our guide to hiring a virtual professional. Here's why we hire virtual professionals instead of virtual assistants. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I knew all these people before I started this. So it came down to getting to much more than just a cool name. I was like, oh, I need to make something up.
Yeah.
And it became more of like, hey, let's make it simple and make it stick and make it easy to remember. And it's been the best brand shift I've ever done. I'm so proud of it. People are asking me for hats. They're like, this is like actually would look cool as a clothing brand.
I know. I would rock that hat all day.
Yeah, exactly. And I just keep hearing it, and I'm just so proud. And it took me just getting out of my comfort zone and being okay. It's going to be okay. I'm going to eat crow to everyone. Hey, look, I know you're still being billed media machine, but this is why. And it just came down to telling the story. I just had to tell the story over and over and over again, and people get it. And social media posts about, and this is what business owners like, listen, if you're not telling stories on your own personal social, you're probably leaving so much opportunity on the table. I made a post, what was it, 4 months ago about how Chloe went from my executive assistant, how I lost my executive assistant because
I saw that post,
and I still get calls today. They're like, I want that story. I want that situation. And I'm like, and so as a business owner, you guys, if you're not telling stories about the difference you're making and the evolution you're going through and how you maybe even struggled with a client and you learn from that thing and how you were winning with clients and how you're winning with your team, it's actually the ones where I share where I'm winning with my team that gets me the most attention from business owners. And so that's just something I would really challenge you to dig into. And I'm not talking about on your business page. I'm talking about
right on your personal page, the same place you share the stuff about your kids.
Exactly. It should be a bit, maybe 20% max. Like, honestly, you got to live your life. People don't want to be pitched all day long, but it's been a game changer moving and branding and third iteration. And I'm just owning all 3 of them and letting them fit where they fit and just being okay with having a lot of emails and a lot of DBAs.
Right. Well, it's interesting listening to that journey though, because you were on the nose with your first title. And you were, Media Machine really does embody what you were doing. Your business model for Media Machine is very similar to the business model we have at C47.
Right.
They're almost one and the same. And then, HireVP being everything you just described, you don't seem to make these changes willy-nilly. You find that there's a new service offering that needs to be understood. And you're clearly taking a minute to go, okay, I need to name this well. And it's just interesting to watch. I mean, because I've been there in a lot of small businesses that are, growing, run into this where the more profitable service offering just revealed itself.
Right.
But everybody knows me as the other thing with the other name. And so having the guts to say, you'll still be billed under the previous name. That's where all my incorporation is. That's how my bank account works. Not going to change that. But we are going to now establish this new thing because you and I, customer and me, both agree that this better serves what we're actually doing. Telling that is so transparent, but I think there's a lot of people who would be afraid that, oh, this is supposed to be some mystical experience where we're just supposed to suddenly feel the brand. Because I think we've watched a little too much Mad Men.
Yeah.
And we don't understand how Coca-Cola became Coca-Cola. And so now we've got to be mythically mystical and creepy and cool instead of just like tell people where it's at.
Yeah. And I would challenge anybody who hasn't had to change their business or change their name. And hey, like some people nail it the first time. I mean, construction is construction, right? Like, yeah, but it's also that mindset that you're not going to get things right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't changed, this goes to change in general. If you haven't changed some things, you're probably not at the best iteration you could be. And so I had to start really reframing change from failure to elevation. And so many people see change as failure and failure as a dead end, where really change is you're looking at something and hopefully, usually it's, wait a minute, there's a better solution. I found that there was a better solution for most of the gym owners and business owners that were coming to me who needed somebody that really understood their business, not a surface level, but a deep base level. They needed someone who could exude their core values. They needed someone who could see the vision of the company and run with it, as opposed to they are working for 8 different companies. And so, or, representing 8 different brands. And so that was a pivot I had to make because it was a betterment for my clients. It was a betterment for the future clients. It was a betterment for anybody. And if you don't believe in your service wholeheartedly, that means there might need to be some sort of change at some level. If you have any question in your mind that you're really doing what you should be doing, you're probably not doing the best that you could do. And it's going to mean change, and it's going to be scary. And maybe that's niching down. Maybe you do marketing for anybody. And I have a friend who does SEO and websites for junk removal businesses. That is his niche. I've told him, I'm like, you are phenomenal at what you do. Will you do my website? Nope.
He's figured out the other stuff.
Yeah. And that's scary for businesses. So there's just that evolution. You should be evolving in your business to such a level that eventually, and this goes to the next level, that you are really not running the thing.
Yeah.
I have a buddy that wrote a really amazing book. And he has this analogy of 2 business owners. One's a marionette holding, and moving all of these strings, and all of those strings are his people and his departments and everything. And it's exhausting. You are moving he said, then there's the orchestra conductor. The conductor has one baton and he's just moving it like this. And everybody else is their own selves moving in that direction because they see the big picture. And so change, whether it's a name, branding, offering, is all just you, hopefully moving closer to being a conductor and providing a better, because man, an orchestra is a beautiful thing to listen to when it's done right. And so, we could have have you ever listened to a clarinet by itself? Like, I'm sorry, clarinet players, but
it's a squeaky mess.
It's horrible. But when you're in an orchestra, it's beautiful. And I want to be a conductor. And to be a conductor, I have to find that brand. I have to find that offering that allows me to make beautiful music. And that means change. And I have to embrace the change, and I have to do it gracefully. And also, there's a lot of work behind it. Yeah.
A ton. But change is the only constant we have.
100%.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, Scott, I am always learning when I'm around you. And I really appreciate how transparent you are. And, I'm just going to wrap up with saying thank you. The presence of your influence and your business is changing my business in ways that I envisioned, but didn't really have my headspace around getting there. And we're there, and we're getting further along that road. And I just want to remind everybody watching the show that, I try not to get too sales pitchy. And we do have this sponsorship relationship, and I'll be talking about Scott's, HireVP business often in the future. But if you've watched enough of our episodes, you know that I care almost irrationally about the health and wellness of your business and your family. And so hiring is hard. Hiring well is even harder. And I just can't implore you enough to genuinely consider how your next hire will be better if you have a guide who can help you find the right person, a company that will back you on all of the weird regulations and all of that stuff, and they'll source a professional that actually checks all of the boxes for you. You got to get your head around this, and then you got to take action, because I'm living proof that it changes a lot of the games you're playing, and games in a positive sense, not a negative sense. It really is a game changer. So, Scott, I can't thank you enough. What is the best URL for your business?
It's the worst question to ask me. Thank you so much. I would seriously tell people just go to Facebook and message me, or Instagram and message me at Scott Rammage, because the website is just...
Wow. Yeah, I caught you at a weird time. Usually people say, this is the name of my business.com, and there you go.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so how about this? If you really want to reach out to Scott and you're like, I don't know how to reach out to Scott, just reach out to me and say, I heard the Scott episode and I know you're doing the thing with the Scott and all of that. And then I'll be like, okay, have you met Scott? And we'll just make that connection. I'm going to make it even easier. I'll broker that deal.
Yes, be a broker. Yeah. Or you can reach out to me directly and just say, Josh sent me, and we'll take care of you. But, it will be HireVP.us very soon. We just gotta get there. Yeah.
Okay. You own the URL. That's good.
Yes. Action's been taken.
Good. Oh, I love action. All right. Well, again, Scott, thank you so much. Bootstrapped Unicorns, you know how I roll. I have no clue who the next episode is going to be, and that's completely cool to me, because I'm going to pop in, I'm going to be like, oh, it's you. And then we're going to talk about stuff that's important to entrepreneurs and the life of the small business and medium business in America. Most of our conversations are interesting in general, but as you know, we're not focusing on the Fortune 500s and how they operate. We can learn from them. We're really focusing on you and how you operate. So make sure you're subscribing to this. Make sure you're following, liking, doing all the socials. Also go find Scott's content, follow him, friend him, do whatever you got to do to follow Scott, because I continually learn from his content and his postings, and also the way he does it and his team does it. It has a certain, panache and je ne sais quoi that is worth feeling the vibe of, because you might want to pick that up, because it's actually really, really functional. So with that, we will see you on the next episode.